Welcome back to the Reading Corner here on Dreamers Defy. We are currently reading Vengeful by AJ Parnell. We are up to chapter 10 today. Now, if you haven't already, go back and start at the introduction and work your way here. This book does deal with a few themes that may not be appropriate for everyone. However, if you're just jumping in and you just want to get right to it, you're welcome to stay. Like I said, we are on chapter 10 today, and it's really getting good. We're trying to figure out who's crazy, who's not, and who did the bad things. All right, let's get to it. Here's chapter 10 of Vengeful. This is No Woman's Land. A deep metal clang sounded from somewhere far off as Abigail shifted in her head. She was cold, really cold, and her normally soft, comfy bed felt like a pile of rocks. She had a pounding headache that was being made worse by an infernal hammering sound. Wait, there was no construction being done at her apartment building. Eyes fluttering, Abigail tried to open them and found it far more difficult than it should have been. Blinking, Abigail tried to clear her vision, but knew what she was seeing had to be wrong. She could not be lying face down in the dirt. What the? Abigail flinched as a loud bang sounded. Disoriented, she sat up, one hand keeping her steady, the other reached for her aching head. The infernal pounding continued. Clang, clang, clang. Abigail tried to take stock of her surroundings. To her surprise, she was lying in the dirt. But that was not the thing that troubled her the most. Seeing herself surrounded by a 10 by 10, 6-foot tall metal fence with a top curved and barbed wire and camouflage tarp that blended her little cell perfectly with the dingy brown and tan surroundings, brought her fully awake. Determined to remain calm, Abigail brushed the dirt from her unkept clothing as she studied the scattered vegetation, rocks, and dirt floor she sat on. She tried to locate the metal on metal clanging sound that continued to reverberate. On hands and knees, Abigail inched toward the front of the cage, peered out from between the gaps in the tarp, and spotted Luke, a few feet outside her cell, driving a large iron bar into the barren soil. Relief flooded through her. Luke? Curious, Abigail watched as he paused, sweat running down the side of his dirty but still incredibly handsome face. What are you doing? Clothes soaked in sweat, Luke refused to look at her as he swung the hammer and delivered another blow, making a perimeter. A perimeter? In the ground? Yes. Clearing her throat, Abigail ran her fingers through her tangled hair. May I ask why? Luke hesitated, straightened, then delivered another blow to the iron rod and finished driving it into the ground. You wouldn't understand. Not yet, anyway. I might if you would explain it to me. Winded, Luke turned and looked back at her. Abigail could tell a lot from that look. He had retreated, fleeing far back into his shell. Talk to me. I might be able to help you. Amused, Luke laughed. Help me? Getting to her feet, Abigail kept herself in Luke's view. Of course. Why wouldn't I? Luke angrily tossed the sledgehammer into the dirt. Oh, I don't know. Maybe because you want me dead? Abigail walked gracefully the side of the cage, placed a hand gently to the metal surface, and pushed the tarp away. You know that isn't true. Isn't it? Luke, you're not well. This isn't... Luke took a menacing step towards the cage. Isn't what? Like me? Standing her ground, Abigail stood tall. No, it isn't. You're kind, help people, so much so that you put others' needs ahead of your own. even at the risk of harming myself? Nostrils flaring, Luke snatched up the heavy tool and stomped over to Abigail. Yeah, a few months ago you made that damn sure I'd come to that conclusion, didn't you, Doc? Retreating, Abigail took several steps back. Regaining his composure, Luke calmed down. But this isn't about me. Not this time, at least. Fear in her eyes now, Abigail said, You're angry with me. I understand. I should never have rejected you or told you those things. I don't give a damn about any of that stuff anymore. Luke's anger calmed, replaced with a look of deep longing. There's a part of me that will always love you, or at least love the person that I once believed you to be. Luke, Interrupting, Luke continued, I want you to know something. All right? I never wanted this for you, Abby. Not even after discovering all the horrible things that you've done. Confused, Abigail stammered. Luke, I never meant to. Holding up a hand, Luke growled. Don't. Just don't. Biting back the words she wanted to say, Abigail politely asked, All right then. Could I please just have some water? Looking over at an old rusted truck, Abigail motioned toward it, and its odd supplies littered about the bed. Please? Reluctant, Luke nodded, took a few steps, and then stopped, his eyes going back to Abigail's makeshift prison and scanning the area around it. Confused, Abigail followed Luke's gaze. What? What's wrong? I'm afraid they'll hurt you if I'm not close. They? Luke continued to stare past her. The others you've tortured, but who weren't lucky enough to survive. Abigail clamped down on what she wanted to say and chose instead to try to reason with Luke. Sweetheart, there's nobody here. A strong gust of wind sent dust swirling about them. Torn, Luke walked to the truck, snatched a bottle of water, then returned and frowned as he shoved the water through the metal bars to her. You couldn't be more wrong, Abby. Frustrated, Abigail watched as Luke picked up the damn sledgehammer and took another iron rod to the edge of the clearing before he began driving in the new stake. With each irritating blow, Abigail took stock of her current situation. Obviously, she was out in the middle of freaking nowhere. Otherwise, Luke would not have had time to build this stupid cage. Drag her out here unconscious and leave her sleeping off her chloroform nap while he continued to build God knows what. Abigail had to face it. Help was not coming anytime soon. Scrutinizing his truck, Abigail took inventory of the items that she could see. One small cooler, a shovel, more iron stakes, tools, and at least 10 large bags of something that she could not identify. But from what she could tell, it didn't look like Luke was planning on staying out here for an extended period of time. However, looking back at the shovel, Abigail wondered if he planned on taking her back with him. What exactly was Luke playing at? Did he want to force her to confess their love affair? Did he want to punish her for what she had done to him? Abigail spun round her cage, took a long sip of her water, then gently sat back down on the blanket that Luke had so graciously supplied. Clang, clang, clang. God, that was going to drive her insane. Surveying her enclosure, Abigail spotted a small bend at the back of the cage, near the bottom of the fence. Unsure of Luke's intention, she'd better start trying to figure out a way out of here and into that truck. She better pray he had left the keys inside of it. Clang, clang, clang. After all, Luke was acting particularly crazy at the moment, and it might be hard to reach him if he was delusional in hearing voices. Patient, Abigail waited for what seemed like hours for Luke to get tired and take a break. Spent, he abandoned his work and staggered over to the truck, downed a whole bottle of water, and plopped down on his tailgate. Hoping he would take a nap, Abigail prodded, "Why don't you sleep for a bit?" Luke's eyes narrowed. "Come on, it's not like I'm going anywhere, and it looks like you could really use the rest." Ignoring her suggestion, Luke opened the small cooler and took out 2 pre-made sandwiches. With the back of his shirt, Luke wiped the sweat from his brow, frowned in her direction, and argued. "I know, but I didn't agree to let her starve." "What?" Sidestepping empty air, Luke closed the gap between them and offered her half of his food. "Here." Taking his hand in hers, Abigail gave Luke a tender smile. "Thank you." Luke hesitated, affording her the chance to gently rub the back of his hand with her thumb, causing Luke's strong hands to tremble in hers. "You're welcome." Luke reluctantly tugged his hands free. "We could talk while we eat," Abigail suggested. A tic formed in Luke's jaw. Not a good idea. Reaching out, Abigail took hold of Luke's arm. "Please, I just want to understand why you brought me here. What do you want from me?" A strong gust of wind hit Abigail in the face and filled her mouth with dust, causing her to sputter. "You should eat." Luke backed away, retreating to his truck where he ate his sandwich in peace, then downed another bottle of water before lying back on the bed of the truck. Still patient, Abigail waited until Luke's breathing slowed and he drifted off to sleep. Once Abigail was sure her captor was out, she hurried over to the warp section of the cage. Getting down on her knees by the wire, Abigail cast a quick glance at Luke. Still flat on his back, the bed of the truck, he slept fitfully with one arm draped over his eyes. Good. If she were lucky, Luke would sleep for hours, giving her plenty of time to create a space big enough for her to escape through. Finishing off what was left of her water, Abigail flipped it over and used the end to start digging underneath the wire mesh. Careful not to create a pile of dirt that Luke would easily see if he looked inside, she kept leveling the excess dirt outside the cage and up against the tarp that was tied down on all 4 sides. With the base of the wire exposed, Abigail began tugging and pulling at it until she finally had a part of it curved up and away from the ground. Using all her strength, Abigail pulled at the heavy metal and fell back with a yelp as she ripped her skin sharply on the sharp spot and bloodied her finger. Damn it. Sticking her finger in her mouth, she stared down at the small spot in irritation. It was a long way from being big enough for her to crawl under, and from the fitful moans coming from Luke, he was about to wake from one hell of a nightmare. Frustrated, Abigail pushed some dirt over her work to conceal it, then sat back in the far corner and waited for whatever came next. That is the end of Chapter 10 of Vengeful. We'll be back with Chapter 11 in just a minute. And again, an invite for you. If you haven't started from the beginning, go back to the introduction video, start there, and catch up with us. The story is getting really good. And if you haven't already hit like and subscribe, please do so to get more of those kind of videos. We'll see you next time here on the Reader's Corner on Dreamers Defy.